What's up, guys? It is That Pan again. I'm here again with another video, and today we're going to be looking through the bracketing, okay? But I'm not going to do the full G1 through 10. I know some people are going to be upset about that, but listen, guys, okay? I might do it more in the other videos, but I felt like there was more interesting stuff for me to kind of cover here, because I do think there's more topics to talk about, especially since this is a much newer event still, and there's kind of more for me to cover and evaluate, right? When saying like, oh, this is what decides how good a bracket is or how bad a bracket is, because it's kind of harder to just determine off of like because I think it's easy to look at, like, for example, you look at Golden Legion, right? And who do you look at? You're not looking at 59E, you're not looking at M49, you're looking at DHX. But I think a lot of people are overlooking how valuable these other alliances are, and how valuable the fact that they can be if utilized, right? And if they're not utilized, you're kind of screwed, because if your other team utilizes the troops and whatnot all properly, you're screwed. That gets into my point, okay? So like I was looking at both alliances, and honestly it's a hard one for me, right? Because honestly, I think it's easy to look at DHX and be like, okay, well, these guys are obviously stronger because they're bigger, and I will agree to an extent. Like, this is probably the stronger group between DHX and ROK either way, and they are 3 billion stronger. I haven't seen DHX's armaments personally. Like, I haven't seen all like the leaderboard. I've seen ROKs, and theirs are pretty impressive, right? And not only that, they do have a lot of people with just maxed out parts in general, so that kind of leads me to believe that they are going to have a pretty strong defense plus offense, right? So overall, I think that this fight in general, just between the two, would still be very even somewhat and take a very long time. And it's hard to say who would win, like, in a field brawl, because it's easy to see DHX with 3 billion more combat might, but it's still a hard one, because even with 3 billion more like might overall, that doesn't mean that they're going to win in a combat brawl, right? Like, might doesn't mean everything, especially when you have like the bigger whales on your side, the overall like monster player base. That being said, I think it's really going to depend a lot on how these alliances are utilized, and if they are fighter alliances, right? Like, because this group right here, I will be fair to say ROK's group right now is looking very solid. I know NBD, these guys are really good fighters. TK84, they look like really strong fighters. So in just general, looking at this face value, Jade already looks solid, right? Being able to have actual rally captains. Not only that, I think some people aren't like noticing this, but let's say you look at DHX's side, right? Look at the alliances on their team. Look at like Brothers in Arms. Do you have anybody with, like, let's say white parts or anything like insane and jacked up, right? You don't. That's what you don't have here. Like, you don't have that, and no offense to these alliances, but like, only DHX should be running rallies. That's all I'm gonna say, right? But you look at this group, right? And I don't think MBD has anybody with like jack parts, right? Like, I think maybe like yeah, they might have gold and purple, but in a bracket like this, you need pretty jacked up like armaments. You need pretty jacked up parts. But when you look at TK84, for example, TK84 does have some insane wills, right? Even if this dude doesn't have like maxed out stuff, just the fact that they might be able to do double rallies in general, and that's like something that I think DHX's side won't be able to do. That's already an advantage ROK has here. So honestly, coming in, just looking at that looks like they might come in swinging pretty hard. I'm not really sure how these two alliances are with DHX. I don't know if any of them have like problems with them, but I'm assuming they don't, right? And if these groups are fighters, this could still be a pretty even matchup. To also, you also got to consider that I think these alliances kind of added together are stronger on Golden side. But honestly, this really depends how that's all utilized. Another thing I will mention is like I don't like. I feel like Azure is going to be forced to align with Golden here in G1, right? Because you gotta understand that ANCS is up here, and ANCS is pretty likely to go with ROK, especially since they're family. And that being the fact, I'm assuming that the other alliances are just going to comply and be like, all right, well, we'll go whatever you guys want, right? That's what I'm assuming is just going to happen. I don't think these other two alliances really have any problems with either of the alliances, so they'll probably just go with whoever. And that being said, it looks like Azure is probably going to go on this side, and I'm not really sure Azure has anybody super jacked to be. Well, they actually do. They have people in AOW. So if these guys in AOW are willing to maybe run rallies and just have people filling and stuff, this could be vital to helping with like towers and stuff, I don't know if they're going to be a big help on the field or anything, but that's going to have to be seen. Although I will say ANCS does have like some jack players, like I know Pickle quit, but someone has his account, and his armaments are insane, right? So even like having him as a rally captain over here is going to be doing plenty, plenty help. So I don't know, man. I honestly think that ROK is coming in with an advantage here. Like pretty tough situation for DHX to kind of be faced with. I think DHX is probably going to go off on this side. They're probably going to let AOW and all of them come down over here, and you're probably going to see like the same, and ANCS is coming up here, and they're just going to probably have a big old fight mid. I think it's really going to be a lot dependent on if they're able to keep these towers topped off. They're going to have these, like I said, these other alliances in their legion actually participating properly and, doing their job. Because if they're not, honestly, I don't see DHX having a chance to win this. That's just the reality of it. Okay, we're going to look at G2. That is just my take on G1, okay? Another thing I wanted to talk about is, okay, so I do this a lot, right? But, when I look at alliances and groups, I do look at, like, the top players only, and this might not be the best bracket to look at it, but, I think sometimes I should kind of look at the average player, because I think you got to understand, even if, like, their top players are really strong or really big fighters, which, honestly, that is a good indicator, because I feel like if you have a strong core, leadership, usually when you have a strong core leadership, I feel like usually you have a pretty solid group of players under them, right? Like you have a lot of people who maybe will fill towers and stuff, but I feel like I don't look enough at the actual players' deaths. Like, look at this guy. No offense, Dippy, but I don't think he's filling towers. I don't think he's helping in the field. This guy, not really sure. Honestly, that's kind of crazy. I honestly expected a little bit more, but you can kind of understand how much of a fighter alliance a lot of these like groups are if you just check kind of their average players out, and you're like, okay, well, do they have a lot of deaths? This guy's probably filling towers. You know what I mean? Even if he only has 10 million kills, that dude's probably willing to fill some towers. 700k. Honestly, that's 13 million kills, 2.5 million deaths. That's actually pretty solid for 64 million. But you guys get the point, right? Like, I feel like I don't do that enough, and I feel like I should do that more when kind of judging some of these brackets. But it looks like G2 is a rematch of Boone and H&B. I don't know if the devs were just unsatisfied with the results, or maybe they were trying to match it back together to milk some more money out of it, especially since they saw how Last Island ended. Boone had no reason to push up mid, and I literally convinced Nam to just sit on checkpoints. I said, nope, we don't need to push up mid. But now that there's a Lush Sanctum, this is a bigger what's it called? It's like, I don't even know what it's called, but it entices you more to actually push up mid, right? And I don't know if you guys noticed, but you get alliance materials passively here. But it does encourage you a lot more to push up mid and actually make a push for this. Though I will say, if given the situation that we were faced with the last island, honestly would still convince Nam to just sit on the checkpoints, because honestly HMB was like 21, 22, maybe even 23 billion. Boone was what, like 16 billion or something? There was absolutely no reason for us to push up, even if there was a Sanctum or a Ruins here, because there was no chance we were winning. Like, in all honesty, there was zero chance we would have won in like a long-term tower fight up mid. So I think even then, like, holding checkpoints would work out. But I think it is more encouraging to kind of push up mid, since HMB is currently like 19 billion and Boone right now is 16.5 billion, right? So the odds are kind of like closer there. And like I said, I think that a lot of how this kind of turns out will be dependent on the alliances within your bracket. Like SLF, probably a good group to be in if you wanna be like a fighter group, right? DFG, I don't really know a lot about these guys, but just based off their top player skills, it looks like they are at least willing to fight. You know what I mean? Like, these guys are willing to put up some numbers. And that's kind of a good thing for H&B on this side. Like, if you look over here, I'm not really sure. Like, I don't know like a ton about OXO or anything, but I would just assume like these groups are probably going to be willing to fill rallies, willing to fill towers, and that's just going to be how it is. Now, one thing I will say, I feel like sometimes in these brackets you'll have like a Legion thrown in here, right? And it's kind of pointless, because look at over here, okay? Like, we're gonna look at this one, right? Like, no offense, right? Like, this isn't even me trying to be offensive, but like, what can you do with this type of gear in G2, right? Like, these type of parts. I'm assuming their armaments aren't really up to speed to these alliances. I mean, you can look at Lost. I think Lost was maybe. I feel like Lost split into two groups and they still got stuck in this bracket with both of their groups too. At that, like that's gotta suck, man. But I don't see anybody with like jacked out gear unless LM4S has that jack gear. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing these guys can really do. Like I don't see these guys being able to launch rallies, defend towers properly without taking really bad trades. And I feel like that's definitely vital because not only if you're taking like let's say 1 to 3 trades, right? Like I'm not trying to lose 5 million troops to kill 5 million troops to only lose 15 million of my troops, right? Just an example. Like I'm not trying to do that on the tower, or I'm not trying to be the one rallying to help out my ally if I'm going to be losing and taking trades like that. It's kind of pointless for me to get involved, and I'm just being used as fodder at that point. And honestly, I wouldn't blame these guys if they just sat out the whole island and just decided to farm it up. You know what I mean? Another thing I will say is Crimson is honestly in a really good spot. I will say there's Spec here, and Spec is naturally aligned with Boone, right? Like just from everything that I know, like Spec is pretty aligned with Boone. So I would be more inclined to believe that Crimson is going to be allied with Boone here. And Jade's Legion, and I will honestly say that Crimson. I looked at this, and Crimson is in a much more favorable spot because if you look at these guys, they have the Lion team, okay? And Lion are honestly a pretty good group of players. Like, look at these guys. Like, I think the only thing is they're going to be kind of restricted on how many towers they can defend. To maybe like 2 towers, 3 towers, because they don't obviously have a ton of Jack players. I would kind of compare it to BTW being in like the really strong strength department, but they don't have like mega whales to be holding towers against like a mega whale alliance. You know what I mean? Although I will say like someone like this, he's probably capable of holding a tower, although I don't think they'd trade positive against an alliance like H&B. But I do think like that in itself would be very helpful. You do have AK&D as well, and AK&D has Big Bro. Big Bro is also maxed kind of parts. I'm assuming his armaments are also jacked. And if this team honestly went with a Jade Legion, I honestly think that this faction might end up becoming the winners just based off that. I could be wrong though because H&B is honestly still a really good group. You know what I mean? But I do think the favors are against H&B, kind of given the situation. And like I said, like this group is just put in a really rough situation. I don't really think it's very favorable for them to kind of get in this fight. You know what I mean? Like I just don't think it's favorable at all. Although it's always possible that Crimson won't end up allying with Jade, and if that's the case, and they end up allying with H&B and whatnot, I think that Boone's 100% losing this. And honestly, if that ends up being the case, I think Boone just holds checkpoints again. Like that's literally what I would do, man. Like I'm not playing up mid to get my butt, just my cheeks clapped in. Okay. All right, so we're gonna look at G3. G3. I feel like I looked at this for a bit, but I don't think I got like a. Oh yeah, okay, so I did look at this. So we have BTW here, okay, and I'm not really sure how this is going to go because BTW is a strong group, but ANCB's on this team, right? Like, and I know that they're allied with BTW, right? Like ANCS and whatnot. So I'm not sure if they're just gonna align together. And honestly, if that ends up happening, I feel like this bracket's gonna be boring. Because no offense, but these other alliances, I just don't think that they're up to like the kind of the challenge here for this bracket. Soul isn't even like a it's kind of, I feel like it's got a lot of alts here, right? Or just really old players who maybe don't fight. Like 7 million kills. This is an account from around the beginning of the game. That's not too bad. I mean. I just don't feel like these are like big. This isn't like a big war group. Same with SNS. This is like I don't think these guys are like, especially for a bracket like this. This isn't like a bracket they should be in. And if their strongest players like someone like Purger here, and I mean his gear is honestly not that bad, but it's not like jacked out of this world. I honestly find it to be kind of hard for them to take on a group like BTW and whatnot. Same can be said about Azure. You know what I mean? Like I don't think Azure has the like manpower to kind of go against that. So I think the only way this is going to be interesting is if Golden and Jade end up fighting here, right? If that doesn't end up being the case, then it's going to be a boring bracket. Because honestly, I looked at LAS, and LAS is this one team I talked about being really strong, but a like lower powered group, right? Like they have a lot of little monsters here, and honestly I think that they could have a chance coming in here, especially considering that you also have Dev B here, and Dev B, I've always considered them to be a pretty above average group at least. You know what I mean? ANCB, I'm not really sure how willing they'd be to kind of help out, but I mean, it's really to be seen. I don't really have much to say about this bracket because I don't know enough about this bracket or how like people will stand together. Okay, so also another thing I will say is it is possible for these teams to be on the same faction, but the thing is, even if they want to align together, Golden and Jade, it's very unlikely. The only case that I think that happens is if Golden doesn't take the level 7, it doesn't even I don't think they can even take the level 6s in this case, right? Like I feel like they would have to take nothing and they would have to wait out the phase and maybe Jade would end up taking the Treasure City. I don't know. Like I feel like they would have to take nothing and they'd kind of have to be put like on their backs, right? And put in a really rough situation. And I just don't see Golden being put in a situation against these two legions or either one of the other two, right? Like I just don't see them being put in that situation. So honestly, I find it hard for them to be kind of paired together, given the situations, given the circumstances. Okay, so G4, I don't have like a lot actually knowledge on G4. I swear I looked through some of these groups, right? You have Soar here. All right, bunch of migrators. I don't know where Rox is. My boy Rox. Oh yeah, there he is. He can rocks these nuts. All right, but Soar. I've always liked Soar. Pretty cool group. Honestly, just cool group of guys in general. Mink does have Ginny. Okay, Mink does have Ginny. Mr. Maxed Out Gear. That's gonna already be a plus as long as he's active. That's another thing to mention, right? Like even if you have these guys with maxed out gear, you gotta pay attention to their kills, right? Like honestly, because if they are a low kill player and they just like have jack gear, that likely means that they either just aren't a fighter or they aren't active to even run rallies or anything, right? So no matter how good your gear is, it only goes as far as like you allow it as far as you allow it to go. You know what I mean? Like here they have Phoenix. I'm sure like Phoenix will be active. I feel like you see this a lot because it's either you have I feel like when you see a T6 player, right? Like you either have a T6 player with like this guy, pretty jacked freaking gear, or you have like a T6 player with, I guess this is kind of me, where it's like purple parts and like blue parts, or maybe all purples and no gold or anything. And then you have players who are either like all gold, half purple, maybe like one or two red parts. And then there's always just those players who are jacked. Like it's that big upgrade. You know what I mean? It's like you're either here, or all the way up here. Honestly, I don't see their situation being that bad, but I honestly feel like they maybe need a better rally captain or something. Like I kind of looked at this group and I don't think they have like a proper besides like that red gear. And honestly, I think red gear isn't the worst. I think a lot of that is going to depend on the armaments. Honestly, the armaments are going to have to close the gap. Like this guy, he looks jacked. He looks jacked. Punisher, this dude is jacked out of the world. Look at these parts. I'm assuming his armaments are equally as jacked, and we're going to assume that this dude's also a massive fighter. You know what I mean? So yeah, those guys could give. I already feel like Azure and Crimson. I feel like Crimson is probably in a slight advantage. I feel like they're probably the main groups, at least from everything I've seen so far. But you do have these guys here. I saw Ace's name. Okay, and honestly, I don't know if they have the gear though. You know what I mean? Like, I definitely think a lot of this is gonna matter on armaments. I wish you could kind of check a player's profile out and be like, okay, well, do they have really jacked armaments? Because I can't tell off this, right? Because there's so many players who spent on gear. Like, you have a lot of players who spent on like parts, right? Like for example, Jenny. I don't know if he has like doesn't spend on armaments, right? But it's possible that he maxed out his account and he's not spending anymore. And his armaments, maybe his best armament is 2 million might. And that might seem good to you, but when you're fighting against people with like 4 million might armaments, 5 million might armaments, that is an insane, just big difference. And the trades you're going to be taking are very noticeable. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to be very noticeable. And it's hard. It's hard to really tell who's kind of the jacked players here. Honestly, I feel like G4 isn't the worst. I definitely think that like Azure and Crimson kind of have an advantage. Just looking at the gear so far, Golden and I feel like Jade is maybe third on that, but I also haven't like fully checked them out. Like they do have like some really strong players, and honestly, considering the whales they have here, honestly think they could contend on their own. Honestly, feel kind of bad for Golden because I don't think they have like the insane whale power on their side. Like MGM for example, this is a big group, very active, but I don't think that they're like a I don't think they're like a big whale group. And sorry, my screen just blacked out. I'm gonna have to wait a second. But yeah, I don't think that the MGM are like a massive whale group. Sorry, my screen like completely blacked out. I don't know why my PC's been acting up lately. It's like they're just a really active one. All right, we're gonna look at G5, and I think I'm gonna close it out there because I don't want to like I don't want to make this video too long. But I did just find a lot of these topics that I kind of talked about to be interesting. You know what I mean? So G5, we have in group 5 here. I'm actually really surprised about this. So you have HAO, for example, and I don't know if they're just throwing these alliances as like fodder, but then you have like a group like Mob, and they're 3 billion, but don't let that fool you. I feel like most of this alliance is dead too, right? Like a lot of people just migrate here for heroes, and no offense to R6, but you know, I like the guys, but it is dead. Like it's just dead. You have 16 in here, glow group, and if it lets me freaking click this, you got tits. Okay. Yeah, nothing crazy. I mean, you got HAO though. You got HAO. That's gonna be kind of a carry group for this one. You know what I mean? And honestly, being placed in G5, I feel like that's pretty moderate and like modest. So you got you got Jade over here. You got ANCC. You got 12. Honestly, I think this is kind of a hard bracket for everybody else, right? Like even X-War. Yeah, I just feel like the kind of hold up against HAO, like okay, never mind. You got a group like this here. Well, this kind of evens out some of the balance, but I feel like the HAO guy. I looked at his armaments, right? I asked him for a report on a Metro rally, and I probably will end up doing a video on that, one. But this guy is just, dude, he's jacked. His armaments, I swear he's got to have like 5 million my heroes, right? And honestly, I feel like these groups are not going to be able to kind of take that on. Like I don't know a lot about these, but I just don't feel like they have the, like people don't understand it, but man, like having one max player can change a whole bracket, right? Like if you're that alliance, that's, let's say you're a moderate sized alliance, right? Like having that max player can really change how your whole legion plays, right? Like your whole legion can just crutch off his gear and join those rallies, crutch off that, trade really well, get easy kills for that island. Literally, like that guy can be a game changer for everybody. You guys get what I'm saying though? I feel like there's that size of either you have like golden and purple, yeah, full purple and like half blue or something, or you have some insanely jacked parts. There's like no in between there. I don't know, man. I honestly think this is kind of rough. I definitely think HAO just has like the vast advantage, and this is how like one player can change everything. Because imagine these guys don't have MK, right? Like I honestly think this group would still be strong, but if they don't have MK, or yeah, who's gonna be launching these rallies, right? Like who's launching these rallies? This guy, and it's not bad, but I feel like if you lose MK, then this other group is probably the strongest group, right? Because they have the best gear, you know? Like having that one player who can carry your group with rallies and all that and be rally captain, be garrison captain, that is massive, man. Like that's such a game changer. And that's like that encourages you or discourages you if you really want to fight, especially against a group that is stronger than you or even like evenly matched against you. So it would be nice if each of these groups could maybe have like one max gear player. Then everybody would be like, okay, well we have equally a chance to win this. You know what I mean? But you come in and you're probably gonna know, yeah, if we fight this guy, we're gonna get our butt cheeks just clapped inwards. That's just how it goes, guys. Okay. I do hope you guys enjoyed. I know I blabbed for quite a while. It's been about 25 minutes. I did enjoy this video. I hope you guys enjoyed as well. I did enjoy talking. So yeah, you guys have a great day or night though, and I appreciate you guys as always for watching. So yeah, you guys have a great one. Peace out.